We have talked about the real size of countries, the largest islands, and the smallest countries. Today, we're looking at the world's largest countries. Now, I'm going to focus on the top 10 list, but I feel like most of these are pretty well known, so at the end of the video, I'm also going to mention the ones that go from 11 to 20, just so we can be different and switch it up on the list. At number 1, the world's largest country, Russia. Its territory makes up 10.995% of the world's land mass. Its Asian portion makes it the largest country in Asia, and its European portion makes it the largest country in Europe. Having roughly 17.1 million square kilometers, 4% of which is water, and bordering 14 different countries. The water composition of each of these countries is interesting because some have high percentages of water, making the land they occupy effectively much smaller. If we took off 7 million square kilometers, Russia would still be the largest. That's how big it is, and a removed section would rank 7 on this list. Before we get to number 2, we need to mention an intermediate one, if you will, which isn't a country but I think should be pointed out in this list. Antarctica, which has a whopping 14 million square kilometers, although 98% of that is just ice. It isn't a country, and in fact, a lot of countries have claimed territory on it throughout history. The current official claims are Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway, and the UK. I guess the unclaimed part is just ruled by the penguins. Moving on to the second largest country in the world, Canada. It's the country in the world with the highest percentage of fresh water on its surface, 8.93 of its total 9.9 million square kilometers. It has a 202,000 square kilometers coastline, meaning it has the longest shoreline in the world. Their population density is 4 people per square kilometer, which means that if it was evenly distributed, each Canadian person would have 61 acres for themselves. At number 3, still making the podium, China. Interestingly, if we account for land area alone, excluding water, China is the second largest country in the world. At 9.59 million square kilometers, it also borders 14 countries, including Afghanistan to the east, Mongolia in the north, Vietnam to the south, and many others. Its climate varies dramatically. In the north, temperatures drop to subarctic levels at some points. The center of the nation holds the Gobi, the world's 4th largest desert, and in the south, temperatures reach tropical levels regularly. With 1.3 billion people living throughout this vast land, although somewhat disproportionately. Like we saw in a previous video, the Heye-Tengchong line shows the large concentration of people on the east and the coast. West of the line there is 57% of the land, but only 6% of the people. On the east side, 43% of the area and 94% of the population. Moving forward, the United States of America. If we take into account all coastal areas, it has 9.8 million square kilometers, 7% of which are water. Some lists place the US ahead of China in terms of size. Maybe it has to do with dependencies, partner states, or territorial waters, I'm not sure, but the list that I used placed them in 4th. 2 north-south features split the nation of the US into 3 distinct pieces in the continent: the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. West of the Rockies we have the Pacific States, with the West Coast and its mostly temperate weather. Between the Rockies and the Mississippi River, the Great Plains, which go from Canada to Mexico, providing the US with one of the world's largest and most fertile lands. And east of the Mississippi, the Eastern Seaboard, home to most of the nation's industrial cities. Next, Brazil, located in South America, the largest Portuguese-speaking country in the world, and the 5th largest overall at 1.5 million square kilometers. Most of us just think of beaches when we think of Brazil, but there's a lot more to it. Granted, they have a great coastline along the Atlantic, but they are also home to much of the world's largest rainforest, the Amazon. The forest is so dense that throughout time, explorers have found human civilizations that had previously never made contact with the outside world. Australia comes in at 6th, with 7.6 million square kilometers. It's also the largest country without any land borders, only being surrounded by water, but not being considered an island because technically it is so large that it doesn't qualify as such. It qualifies as a continental landmass. Most people live on the coastline, especially on the east-southeast one, and this is because the Australian outback is one of the world's driest and hottest regions. Along with extreme climate and geography, Australia is also known for its spectacular and also very dangerous wildlife. Being the second largest in terms of population, it's number 7 in terms of size, India. And this is where the size difference really starts showing. At 3.2 million square kilometers, its size is less than half of the previous country. This value doesn't count the areas under territorial disputes. Its territory ranges from the incredible Himalayan mountains to the tropical shores in the south. It's located on its own subcontinent, and studies have determined that at one point, the subcontinent was separated from the rest of Asia by a sea. Beginning as an island further down south, it eventually traveled north and joined with the rest of Asia. Continuing to go down the list, this is where I started getting surprised by a few countries. Argentina is the 8th largest country in the world, with 2.7 million square kilometers, being the largest Spanish-speaking country. It surprised me because Argentina is only the 32nd most populous country. It also varies a lot in climate and geography. It has swamps and tropical regions in the north, and then freezing glacial lands in the south. It's home to Patagonia, an incredible but also very dangerous place, as well as Cape Horn, which is known to be one of the stormiest locations in the entire world. Kazakhstan follows at number 9 with a very close size of 2.72 million square kilometers, being the largest landlocked country in the world and the only landlocked country in the top 10. It has warm and dry temperatures throughout most of the year, although they don't get to the point of what you would find in a desert, and it also doesn't get as cold as its neighbor Russia. It borders precisely Russia to the north, also China, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan, coming very close to Mongolia, but not actually bordering it because of a little bit of Chinese land in between. With around 18 million people, they would also have a lot of free space if each was given a part of the land. Closing the top 10, we have the first African country on the list, Algeria, at 2.3 million square kilometers. It's cool how throughout this list, there is a country for each of the continents. It is also the country with the largest Mediterranean coast. Their coastline of this inland sea is of 998 kilometers. 90% of the land is regarded as desert. Interestingly, a lot of its land is very elevated. Most of the country, especially the desert areas which include Algerian Sahara, are hundreds of meters above the sea level. And those are the top 10 largest countries in the world, which take up a significant amount of land on our planet. Now let's take a quick look at the next big countries in the world, which I guess are somewhat less known. The 11th largest country is the Democratic Republic of Congo, with 2.3 million square kilometers, only 3.3% of which is water. It's the world's second largest French-speaking country. Before we keep going, a side note. If we could count Greenland as a part of Denmark, which in some aspects we should, it would come between the 11th and 12th position at 2.2 million square kilometers. But we need to take into account that Greenland alone accounts for 2.1 million square kilometers, and its semi-autonomous / independent status makes it so that Denmark isn't included in most lists of this kind. The official 12th largest country in the world is Saudi Arabia at 2.1 million square kilometers. Then Mexico at 1.96, Indonesia at 1.91, and Sudan at 1.8. Libya is in 16th, then we have Iran, Mongolia, Peru, and finally closing the top 20, Chad. So those are the 20 largest countries in the world. Like I said, I just focused more on the top 10 and then just decided to mention the following 11 up to 20. So if you would like me to talk more about these other ones, just let me know in the comments. It really surprised me that countries like Peru, Chad, or Congo are so high up in this list, but I guess it's because we usually just focus on the really big ones and tend to overlook these other ones. Thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe if you want and leave a comment with any suggestions, corrections, or pretty much anything you would like to say. I will see you in the next video.